Hey everybody, Jim here with another video for you. This is my special Valentine's Day video. What's love got to do with it? Unusual love stories. But before I begin, at the end of this video, if you like what you see, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, leave comments below. Now, I'm filming this the day before Valentine's Day, so I'm filming this on Thursday, the 13th of February. And I know a lot of content creators are putting together their favorite rom-coms, their favorite romantic movies and such, and that's just fine. Excuse me. But people who follow my channel know that my tastes vary, and I've gone on record saying that I generally do not like romantic movies. The reason why I'm showing this 10 Best Picture box here is because right on the cover, okay? Titanic, Forrest Gump, Terms of Endearment in a way, The English Patient, and My Fair Lady. All of them, to one degree or another, are love stories. And some of them are on quite a few of people's lists, especially Titanic. But I wanted to go outside the box, so let's get rid of the box. And I picked a dozen titles that maybe would come to mind, maybe wouldn't. And I wanted to mention that some of these titles I've already mentioned on the last episode of Talking Movies with Sean, Kenny, and Jim that aired a couple of days ago. If you haven't seen that one yet, please go to Sean's channel or the Talking Movies channel below and check it out. Our special guest was Texas Hardcore, and it was one of the best episodes we've done so far. I loved that episode so much. We had a ball. I'm going to leave the links below. But anyways, that kind of inspired me to do this video. So in no particular order, we're going to start off with some horror movies. And of course, most people would expect this on the list. The classic, My Bloody Valentine. This is my Scream Factory Steelbook. I absolutely love the artwork on these things. And this one in particular, it's just so great. And this movie's awesome. It contains both versions, the theatrical and the unrated version. This movie's been remade, of course, which is also fun. I don't own that one, but this one's great. And again, not romantic in any way, shape, or form, but how could I do a Valentine's Day video without it? So, My Bloody Valentine. Sticking with the horror, how about a little under-the-radar slasher, He Knows You're Alone. This movie isn't exactly great, okay, by any stretch, but there he is. Tom Hanks' big screen debut was in this movie. And the hook on this movie, it's a slasher, like I said, but the hook on this movie is the killer is a guy who was jilted at the altar, so he goes around stalking brides-to-be and kills them more or less the day before they get married. And you're following this girl who, of course, is getting married. Again, average thriller, average slasher. It's not very gory. Okay, this one actually is pretty tame considering some of the other movies that came out around that time. And it's well made. And like I said, Tom Hanks is in it. He's not in it very long, but he doesn't get killed or anything like Kevin Bacon in Friday the 13th. So if you've never seen this movie, track it down. He Knows You're Alone. And then now we're getting into the unusual horror movies that have to do with love that you wouldn't necessarily think of. How about John Carpenter's Christine? And if you're thinking, what the hell? This ain't a love story. It sure is. This one is about a love story of a kid and his car. More importantly, the car and the kid. Because the car goes after all of his enemies. And every time I see this movie, I think of the Queen song. I'm in love with my car. Love this movie. I know Roy over at Blue Roy Movies does not like this movie. And hey, that's fine, Roy. That's quite all right. I get it. But I absolutely adore this movie, especially the character that Robert Prosky plays, the old man from the garage. You know what, Peppa? You can't polish a toy. Yeah, I love that guy. Love this movie. And this was one that I mentioned on that live chat, and Mr. Dan in Horror had to go and ruin the fun before I could bring it up, but David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986. Yes, this is a gory, disgusting horror movie, but at its heart, it is a tragic love story between the characters that Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis play. As a matter of fact, like I said on that live chat, the two of them were dating at the time, and you could see the chemistry between them. And I have always thought of this movie as a love story. I always have. Now, this one I also mentioned, and this one defies description. Mandy, starring Nicolas Cage and Linus Roach, and what's her name? Andrea Riseborough. There she is right there as the title character, Mandy. Pardon my French or my foul language. This movie's a mindfuck. That's the only way to describe it. I have never recommended this movie to anyone, and I'm not recommending it now. All I would say is that I really enjoyed it, but it is an extremely strange movie. It's weird. It's like watching an acid trip for an hour and a half, and I'm not even now giving it justice about how weird this movie is. So, bearing that in mind, if you like truly bizarre movies, give this one a chance. I'm not saying you'll like it, because chances are, it's 50-50 at best, but I love this movie. And Nicolas Cage, even though his dialogue is minimal in this movie, it's one of his best performances, in my opinion. So, this quasi recommendation is Mandy, directed by I'm sorry, I forgot to even mention that. This one is directed by Panos Cosmatos, who is the son of George P. Cosmatos, who directed Tombstone and Rambo: First Blood Part 2 and Leviathan and a couple other movies. And this kid has got a great eye. Like I said, this movie is disgusting, but it's beautiful to watch. Again, I can't really get into it too much, but warning, like I said, very, very, very bizarre movie. Probably the most bizarre movie I have in my entire collection. The last of the horror, but this really isn't a horror because we're segueing into comedies. Kenny brought up Clerks as an outside the box recommendation on our list. And I said that is a great bromance, but it pales in comparison to the wonderful bromance that is Tucker and Dale in Tucker and Dale versus Evil, starring Tyler Labine, Alan Tudyk, and Katrina Bowen. This movie is a blast. It is so much fun. It makes a great double feature with Cabin in the Woods. It's a comedy, but it's extremely gory. But the reason why it's on this list is because of the heterosexual love affair between the two main characters. Their relationship goes beyond love. It is just so touching to watch. And this movie takes all the horror tropes and turns it on its head. If you've never seen this movie, by all means, track it down. It is so entertaining. I cannot recommend Tucker and Dale versus Evil enough. It's just got a terrible title. That's the only problem with this movie. Okay. Now, one of the big things in Hollywood that most people, not most, but a good audience loves are romantic comedies. And again, I generally don't like romantic comedies unless they've got an edge to them. And as far as romantic comedies go, I love Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Starring, what the hell is his name? I always forget. Jason Segel, I'm sorry. Kristen Bell, Mila Kunis, Russell Brand, Jonah Hill, and Paul Rudd, among others. This movie's got a great cast. I know a lot of people don't like Russell Brand, as a person. And hey, I get it. I totally understand that. I always separated people from, what they do on screen, and he is hysterically funny in this movie. His character, to me, is the highlight of this movie, and I love this movie. It is absolutely hysterical. It is very politically incorrect. It is raunchy as hell, but my God, is it funny. And not only that, it's got a touching love story to it. So Forgetting Sarah Marshall is probably my favorite romantic comedy from the last 20 years. This one ain't a romantic comedy, but oh my God, is it great. And it definitely deals with love because you follow these two characters for their marriage in War of the Roses, starring Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito, among others. Directed by Danny DeVito. I adore this movie. It is beyond dark, but oh my God, is it great. And I saw this movie as a newlywed in 1989, a couple of months after me and the wife got married. And she hated it, and I thought it was hysterically funny, and that should have tipped me off right then and there that, we just weren't meant to be together. I love War of the Roses. But these last ones actually touched me. They worked for me as far as the romantic angle goes, and I wasn't expecting it on a couple of these for sure. The first is Albert Brooks's directed and written Defending Your Life. Starring Albert Brooks, Meryl Streep, Rip Torn, Lee Grant. It's just a great movie. Oh, and Buck Henry. I forgot Buck Henry. This came out in 1991. Now, I was married at the time, and we were starting to have marital problems at this point. But we went and saw this movie together, and I gotta admit, it worked for both of us. It's a very funny movie, but it's a very touching movie. And I love it. I absolutely adore Defending Your Life. If you've never seen it, I don't want to go too far into the plot because, again, one of the great things about this movie is discovering the secrets as it goes. But I was hesitant to begin with because I just didn't buy the chemistry between Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep before I saw the movie. And by the end of the movie, you totally buy it. This is a great, great romantic comedy. This one totally caught me off guard, and this one was on Sean's list on that show. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. With a great cast. Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, Tom Wilkinson, and others. I mean, this is just a great movie. Directed by Michael Gondry, or Michel Gondry, however he pronounces his name. This is my favorite Jim Carrey movie, without a doubt. I was working at that theater right before I quit, actually, when this movie came out. And I put together the movie. Back then, movies came in reels, so you had to splice them together into one giant reel. And the night before, I actually watched this movie, just to make sure that I put it together correctly. And originally what got me was how quirky the movie is and the directions it goes in, but what got me at the end was the love story between Kate Winslet and Jim Carrey. The love story in Titanic did not work with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, in my opinion, but it does in this movie between Jim Carrey and her. I adore this movie. It is awesome. It is funny. It's weird. It is just beyond description. But again, at its heart, it is definitely a love story. So if you've never seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, please, by all means, check it out. This is one of my favorites from childhood. And I've talked about this title many times, time after time, from 1979. Written and directed by Nicholas Meyer and starring the wonderful, wonderful Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells, the beautiful Mary Steenburgen, and the incredible David Warner as Jack the Ripper. Probably my favorite role from both. I adore this movie. This came out in 1979. Like I said, I did not see it theatrically, but this was a movie that me and my best friend Rob at the time watched on HBO on a loop for at least 6 months. I've seen this movie 100 times at least, and I will probably watch it another 100 before I die. It's a science fiction, suspense thriller, but at its heart, it's a love story, and it's a great one. And again, I cannot recommend this movie enough. So if you've never seen Time After Time, please track this movie down. It is awesome. We're going to end it on this one. I said at the beginning, I hate romantic movies. I hate schmaltzy, formulaic movies that are there to play with your emotions and get you to feel a certain way. And I just, by and large, hate those movies. This one worked for me on a level I did not see coming and still does. And I'm talking about WALL-E. My favorite Pixar movie, by far. And this movie is entertaining as hell. It's funny. It's smart. It's got some thrilling scenes in it, but again, at its heart, it's a love story between two robots who don't even speak. She says Wall-E, and he says Eva, and that's about it. And that's all you need. I don't know if it's those big blue eyes that remind me of E.T., but something about this movie just fills me with joy. And it is. It's probably my favorite love story in my collection. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, happy, and safe, happy Valentine's Day. I'm going to be dropping links in the description below from all of the channels that I mentioned in this video. And again, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you liked what you saw, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe. Most importantly, please leave comments below. I cannot wait to hear from you. I'm probably not going to drop anything else this weekend. My grandson will be in town, so we'll be seeing you guys next week, and we'll be catching you on the next one.